There was once a peculiar village, where every newborn was given a glass box. They were taught, "Stay inside this box. The world out there is dangerous." Over time, they decorated the box, got used to its tight corners, and eventually called it life. Then one day, a child accidentally knocked over their box, and instead of fear, they saw the sky. And you know what? That child is not so different from us. Except instead of a glass box, we grow up surrounded by invisible beliefs, branded as reality. Beliefs like, "You must suffer to succeed," "Money is the root of all evil," "I'm not good enough," "Life is a constant struggle." These are no different from the four walls of the most delicate prison, the box inside your mind. Here's the strange part. None of us were born with those beliefs. We absorbed them from parents, schools, culture, media, and repeated often enough. Those borrowed beliefs became the hidden operating system behind everything. How we see ourselves, what we notice, what we allow ourselves to dream of. But here's the twist. If the box was created by thought, then it can be reshaped by thought too. In this video, I'm not here to say, just think positive. I want to go deeper, to help you truly understand why your life looks the way it does, and how you can start rewriting it. Not someday, not when you're ready. Now, we'll explore how your brain filters reality based on what you believe, not what's true. How your emotions emit energetic frequencies that shape what the world reflects back. And most importantly, how to start removing one piece of glass at a time, through awareness, belief, and action. You don't need to shatter the whole thing. Just one crack is enough. If you feel like this is the kind of content your soul has been needing, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you can receive more daily tools to help you break free from the box of the mind. Have you ever stopped to ask, whose rules am I living by? Odds are most of us haven't. We wake up, go to work, chase goals, manage relationships, and try to make it all work. But beneath that daily hustle is a web of unspoken rules we didn't consciously choose. They were handed down to us, by family, by culture, by the society we grew up in. Think about it. You have to work hard to be successful. That sounds noble, even obvious. But is it true in every case? We've all seen people climb fast not because they outworked everyone, but because they understood leverage, played politics well, or were born into the right connections. Money brings happiness. Another one. Sure, money solves problems and opens doors, but ever met someone with plenty of it, and a complete mess inside? Or the belief, I'm not lovable unless I'm perfect. That one? That can haunt someone from childhood all the way into every adult relationship they touch. These rules didn't fall from the sky. Most of them are scripts we started absorbing when we were kids. Parents, teachers, movies, religion, all planting seeds about who we are, how life works, what's possible, what's off limits. At the time, we couldn't filter them. We just soaked them in. Imagine a 5-year-old being told, don't be lazy or you'll never amount to anything. Fast forward 20 years, and that same person might burn themselves out, chasing worth they never feel they've earned. The voice isn't theirs, but it lives inside them now. Bruce Lipton, a stem cell biologist, and one of the early popularizers of epigenetics, makes this even more fascinating. His work suggests that it's not just our genes shaping us, but our environment, and more importantly, our beliefs about that environment. Your thoughts, your emotional patterns, the way you interpret the world. They're not just fluff. They can affect which genes get activated or suppressed. Essentially, your reality isn't just built from DNA. It's built from perception. The rules you believe in shape the life you live, and even the biology you carry. Here's where it gets real. Most people never question the rules. We assume they're just how it is, but they're not. They're how it was for someone else, and we inherited the leftovers. So the deeper question becomes, What would it look like to write your own rules? This isn't about becoming a rebel for the sake of it. It's about clarity. Freedom doesn't start with breaking chains. It starts with seeing them. When you realize you've been playing a game you never signed up for, you gain the power to step off the board, to rewrite the objectives, to shift from, "What am I supposed to do?" to, "What truly matters to me?" Some people hit that moment after burnout. Others when a life crisis breaks the illusion. But you don't have to wait for collapse. You can begin now. Start noticing the rules you live by. Trace where they came from. Ask who benefits from you believing them. And then, here's the scary and exciting part. You get to choose which ones stay and which ones you're done with. What if success didn't mean working 80 hours a week? What if being enough didn't depend on anyone else's approval? What if freedom meant building a life that actually fits you? You get to decide. That's the real game. Ever had this happen? You're thinking about buying a red car, and suddenly you start seeing red cars everywhere. On the road, in ads, parked down your street, like the universe is sending you a sign. But what's actually going on isn't magic. It's your brain doing its job, specifically a system inside it called the RAS, Reticular Activating System. The RAS is like a filter for your brain. Every second, your senses take in way more information than you can consciously handle. Sounds, sights, smells, movements, thoughts, millions of bits flying at you. Your RAS steps in to help you survive and function. It decides what's important enough to bring to your attention and what to ignore. And here's the key. What you believe is important helps shape that filter. Let's say you carry a belief like, "I'm unlucky," or "people can't be trusted." You might not say it out loud, but if it lives in the background of your mind, your RAS goes to work proving you right. It starts spotlighting every little thing that confirms that belief. You notice the one bad driver who cut you off, but not the 10 that didn't. You remember the one time someone let you down, and forget the ones who showed up. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's just doing what you asked it to do. Focus on what aligns with your existing belief system. Now compare that to the law of attraction, which in spiritual circles says, you attract what you put out. Positive energy draws positive outcomes, and so on. While that might sound a bit mystical, RAS gives it a grounded, biological explanation. If you shift your inner beliefs, say from "I'm unlucky" to "I create my own opportunities," you start noticing different data, not because the world changed, but because your filter did. That's why sometimes, when people start practicing gratitude or visualization, things seem to magically get better. It's not magic. It's that they've reprogrammed what their brain is looking for. Your focus creates your experience. And the wild thing? You're not even aware of most of it happening. You've probably experienced moments of what people call synchronicity. You think about someone, and they text you 5 minutes later. Or you're pondering a career change, and suddenly keep meeting people in that field. Some call it coincidence. Others see it as a sign. But one way to understand it is this. Your brain is now tuned to notice those signals. Before, they were just noise in the background. Now they stand out. You're in sync, not with the universe per se, but with your own focus. The real transformation happens when you change your core beliefs. Not just surface thoughts like, "I want to be confident," but deep ones like, "I am worthy. Good things are meant for me. I can handle challenges." When those shift, your RAS starts showing you the proof. New ideas catch your attention. You see opportunities where you used to see threats. People respond to your energy differently because you're showing up differently. This is why mindset work isn't fluff. It's not just about thinking positive. It's about rewriting the code your brain uses to interpret reality. You don't have to control every external thing. You just have to get your filter working for you, not against you. So next time something repeats, or coincidences pile up, ask yourself, is it the world changing? Or is it me, finally tuning in? There's an old assumption we've all been fed, that reality is fixed, objective, and the same for everyone. But modern science and human experience tell a different story. Let's start with a strange but very real experiment from quantum physics, the double-slit experiment. In this experiment, particles like electrons are fired at a barrier with two slits. If no one watches them, they behave like waves, spreading out, overlapping, creating interference patterns. But the moment someone observes them, they act like particles, solid, distinct, choosing a definite path. That means the outcome depends on whether or not there's an observer. It's not just quirky science. It shatters the old idea of an independent, unchanging reality. At the smallest levels, consciousness affects matter. Now zoom out. We're not electrons, and daily life isn't a physics lab, but the principle holds. Your awareness, your expectations, your focus, they shape what you perceive and how you experience reality. The observer effect doesn't stop at particles. It runs through thought, emotion, and meaning. Reality, then, isn't just a physical landscape. It's a complex mix. Material events plus consciousness plus energy. What you think, feel, believe, and expect. All of that influences how your world shows up for you. Two people can walk into the same room and have completely different experiences. One sees opportunity, the other threat. One feels connection, the other tension. Same setting, but different realities, because different observers are interacting with it. This isn't just philosophy or science. It's also reflected in how we learn. In education, there's a model called constructivism, which says people don't just absorb knowledge. They build it from their own experiences. Students make sense of the world by filtering it through their background, culture, emotions, and prior understanding. The teacher doesn't deliver truth. The learner constructs it. In the same way, we don't just receive reality, we construct it through interpretation. So what does that mean for daily life? It means that much of what we think is truth might just be habit. Our version of reality is often an accumulation of what we were told, what we've experienced, and how we made sense of it all. It's not wrong, but it's also not absolute. And that's where the power lies. Because if reality is partly constructed, then it's also negotiable. You don't have to accept every belief you inherited. You don't have to live inside someone else's definition of success, happiness, or love. You can renegotiate those terms. Ask different questions. Give different meaning to the same events. Reframe your own story. That's not denial or delusion. It's agency. You're not faking reality. You're shaping your version of it with more awareness and intention. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean facts don't matter or that you can manifest your way out of every hard thing. We still live in a shared physical world, but within that world, our individual experience, how we respond, what we focus on, what we believe is possible, is more flexible than we're taught to think. So maybe the real shift is this. Stop thinking of reality as a fixed truth, out there to be discovered, and start seeing it as a conversation between you and the world, a dynamic, evolving personal negotiation. And if it's negotiable, then you've got more power than you realized. Imagine for a second that you're like a radio tower, broadcasting a signal 24/7, whether you're aware of it or not. That signal is your energy, shaped by your thoughts, your emotions, your state of being. And just like a radio, what you send out determines what you tune into. This isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's backed by both science and ancient wisdom. Let's start with the science. In Power versus Force, Dr. David R. Hawkins mapped human emotions on a scale of energy frequency. His research suggested that each emotion vibrates at a measurable frequency. At the low end of the spectrum, guilt, shame, fear, these emotions operate at a lower frequency. and tend to drain us, making us feel stuck or disconnected. They also correlate with a state of contraction, where opportunities seem scarce, and problems feel overwhelming. On the flip side, emotions like love, joy, gratitude, and peace vibrate at higher frequencies. These states expand our perception, increase resilience, and interestingly, seem to attract more supportive circumstances. It's not that good vibes magically erase reality. It's that your internal state shifts, how you interpret, respond to, and engage with the world around you. Your energy filters your experience. This concept aligns closely with Buddhist teachings. In Buddhism, emotions and thoughts are seen as seeds, causes and conditions that eventually lead to corresponding results or outcomes. The emotional state you're in while acting plants a specific kind of seed in your reality. If you act out of fear, the fruit will carry that flavor. If you act with compassion or clarity, the result reflects that too. The world isn't just responding to what you do, it's responding to who you are while doing it. Now here's where it gets tricky. Most people aren't consciously choosing their frequency. They're reliving old ones. Thoughts about that argument from last week, that mistake from 5 years ago, or that failure that still stings. They keep looping, and every time they do, you're not just remembering it, you're feeling it again. You're broadcasting the same emotional frequency, as if it's still happening. In effect, you're living in the past, and by doing so, you're shaping a present that mirrors it. Think about that. If you wake up each day and immediately start tuning into regret, worry, resentment, you're setting your emotional dial to a station that plays more of the same. And your brain, thanks to the Reticular Activating System, remember that filter, will find more signals to match that channel. So how do you shift? It starts with deciding what station you want to tune into, not in a fake, forced good vibes only way, but by consciously choosing the emotional state that matches the reality you want to live in. Here's a simple exercise. 1. Name what you want. Is it peace, freedom, a healthy relationship, creative flow? 2. Ask yourself honestly, what frequency does that desire live on? Hint: peace doesn't come from panic. Love doesn't grow from self-hate. Abundance doesn't come from fear. 3. Practice feeling that emotion now, even in a small way. Gratitude for one tiny thing, joy in a single moment, confidence in one small action. Let it grow. Let it guide your choices. 4. Act from that state, not just waiting for good things to show up, but making moves that reflect the energy you're choosing to embody. This is what it means to tune your station. You're not controlling every outcome, but you are shaping the quality of your experience and influencing what flows into your life. Your energy is the invitation. The clearer, stronger, and more aligned it is with what you truly want, the more likely life is to echo it back. So ask yourself, what frequency are you broadcasting today? And is it the one you actually want to live in? Most people walk around thinking their beliefs are facts. But here's the truth. Beliefs are not facts. They're just thoughts you've repeated enough times, often with strong emotion, until your brain locked them in as truth. And once they're in, they start running the show. Take something like, I'm not good enough. No one's born believing that. It gets planted. Maybe it came from a parent who was hard to please, a teacher who humiliated you, or a heartbreak that made you feel small. And if the moment was emotionally intense, your nervous system recorded it deeply. Over time, the thought becomes a script, and the script becomes reality, not because it's true, but because you keep living like it is. Dr. Joe Dispenza puts it bluntly, change your thoughts, and you change your life. It sounds simple, but most people try to change their life without changing the thoughts that are creating it. That's like repainting a wall. When the foundation is cracked, the real work begins inside, at the level of belief. The first part is catching the belief. You can usually spot it. by listening to the story you keep telling yourself in hard moments. I always mess things up. No one ever really chooses me. I'm just not that kind of person. These are not harmless thoughts. They're internal rules, your version of the game, and they shape how you play, what you risk, and what you settle for. Once a belief surfaces, you have to trace it back. Where did this start? Who told you this, directly or indirectly? Sometimes the memory is clear. Other times, it's subtle. A look, pattern, a feeling you picked up in childhood and never examined. You're not doing this to blame anyone, but to see the moment the rule got written, because you can't rewrite what you won't name. Next comes the challenge. Literally challenge the belief. Ask, is this always true? Has there ever been a time this wasn't true? If someone you loved told you they believed this about themselves, would you agree with them? Often, when we shine a little light on these beliefs, they start to crack. Not because we're lying to ourselves, but because the old belief never held up to real scrutiny. We just never questioned it. Now comes the pivot point, writing a new belief. Not a fantasy, not a blind affirmation, but a grounded, empowering truth you're ready to move toward. I'm not good enough becomes, I'm learning to trust my worth. I always get left behind turns into, I'm worthy of being chosen. The belief has to feel real enough to commit to, even if part of you still wrestles with it. That's okay. You're not pretending, you're reprogramming. And here's the part that most people skip. You have to live in alignment with the new belief, not just repeat it in your journal or on a vision board. Embody it. Want to believe you're lovable? Start showing up in your relationships like that's true. Want to believe you're capable? Take a step that scares you a little and prove it to yourself. The brain learns best through action. Every time you act from the new belief, you reinforce it. And every time you slip into the old one, but catch it and choose again, you're weakening its grip. This is not a one-time fix. It's a daily practice. You're not just changing your mindset. You're rewriting the rules of your reality. And that takes repetition, intention, and courage. But here's what makes it worth it. The beliefs you install today become the life you live tomorrow. And if the old ones were inherited, unconscious, or fear-based, then choosing new ones isn't just healing, it's liberation. So if your reality feels tight, stuck, or scripted by someone else's hand, maybe it's time to ask, what belief is driving this? And more importantly, what belief do I want to write instead? The brain you're using right now is not fixed. It's changeable, adaptable, and constantly rewiring itself based on how you think, feel, and act. This ability is called neuroplasticity, and it's one of the most powerful and underused tools for personal change. For a long time, science believed that once we hit adulthood, our brain structure was set. But now we know that's not true. Every time you learn something new, interrupt an old pattern, or try a different behavior, your brain begins forming new connections. These neural pathways get stronger the more you use them, just like muscles. And the old ones? They fade if you stop feeding them. Think of your beliefs like well-worn trails in a forest. If you've believed, I'm not confident for years, that thought pattern is like a dirt path. You've walked 1,000 times. It's automatic, familiar. But the moment you start doing something different, like speaking up in a meeting, even just a little, that's you stepping off that path and creating a new trail. At first it's clumsy and uncomfortable. The grass is high, the ground is uneven, but keep walking it, and soon, that becomes your new route, your new default. This is where the small wins method comes in. Most people try to change their lives through big declarations, massive overhauls, strict resolutions, all or nothing thinking. And most of the time, they burn out. But your brain doesn't need drama to rewire. What it needs is consistency, tiny actions repeated over time that send a signal. This is who I am now. Let's say you want to become more focused, more joyful, or more confident. You don't need a 10-step master plan. You need one action that's so small it's impossible to fail, and you need to do it every day. Drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. Saying thank you before your feet hit the floor. Clearing your workspace for 2 minutes before bed. These may seem trivial, but they're not about the action. They're about what it builds. Momentum, clarity, and belief. Each small win tells your brain a new story, and your brain listens. Says, "Oh, we're doing this now." The identity starts shifting from the inside out. Not because you forced it, but because you proved it little by little. This is how you train your brain to believe new things. Not just by thinking them, but by living them in micro-moments. Over time, those small moves compound. The habit of stretching for 2 minutes becomes a full morning routine. A daily thank you becomes a genuine sense of gratitude. Taking one deep breath before reacting becomes emotional control. The beauty of neuroplasticity is that change doesn't have to be immediate. It just has to begin. The brain is always listening. So even if the step feels small, even if you're not sure it matters, if it's aligned with the future you want, counts. Every repetition lays down new wiring. Every action becomes part of the new path. So if you've been stuck, waiting for the right time to change, don't. Just pick something, one thing. Make it small, make it doable, and do it daily. The forest in your mind will start to shift. The old trails will fade. And before long, the new ones will feel like home. You can't see it, but you can feel it. That invisible weight on your chest. The tension in your shoulders. The way your thoughts keep looping back to something you thought you were over a long time ago. We carry more than we realize, not just physically, but emotionally and energetically. These unresolved emotions, old pains, and buried memories don't just disappear on their own. If they're not released, they accumulate and solidify inside us as stagnant energy that weighs us down in invisible ways. Some call it trauma, others call it baggage. Let's just call it what it feels like. Invisible bricks. Every time something hurt you, and you didn't have the space or tools to fully process it, another brick was added to your load. That moment of betrayal you never spoke about. The shame you buried but never released. The fear that still shapes your decisions in silence. Over time, it builds up, and even though you learn to live with it, quietly drains your energy and shapes how you show up in the world. This weight isn't just mental, it's physical, somatic, living in your nervous system, your posture, your breath, even the tone of your voice. To move forward with real freedom, you have to let it go. Not by pretending it's not there, but by recognizing it, honoring it, and then making the conscious decision to release it. Start by noticing your bricks. What are you still holding that drains you? What resentment lingers in the background? What shame lives quietly in your body? What fear is driving your choices without you realizing it? This isn't about blaming anyone. It's about awareness, because you can't release what you haven't named. Once you've identified what you're carrying, picture it clearly. Give the feeling, the memory, or the thought a shape. A stone, a brick, a heavy backpack, whatever comes naturally to you. Feel it, not to stay stuck in it, but to connect with it long enough to consciously let it go. Then visualize the release. Place it in water and watch it float away. Throw it into a fire. Hand it over to the wind. The image doesn't matter. The intention does. You're sending a signal to your entire system. I no longer need to carry this. But don't stop there. Nature doesn't like empty space. So once you've released, replace. Imagine that space filling with light, or calm, or strength, or whatever energy you want to invite in. You're not covering the wound. You're creating space for healing, and reminding yourself that you are more than your pain. You are someone who can heal, someone who gets to choose what stays, and what no longer belongs. This may sound abstract, but it's a truth recognized in traditions around the world. In Catholicism, confession is more than moral ritual. It's a way to unburden the soul. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness allows you to observe your emotions without judgment. And in that witnessing, those emotions begin to lose their grip. You don't suppress the anger or the shame. You meet it with presence. And in that space, it starts to dissolve. We carry so much emotional clutter that we forget how light we're meant to feel. But when you start to release, even one brick at a time, you feel it in your body, in your breath, in your choices. You stop reacting from old pain and begin responding from who you are now, not who you were when the wound began. You don't have to unload everything at once. Even laying down one brick can shift the way you walk through the day. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I still carrying that no longer belongs in my hands? And when you're ready, put it down. Freedom doesn't always come from adding more. Sometimes it begins the moment you choose to let go. Real change, the kind that feels sudden, powerful, and almost magical, rarely comes from willpower alone. It happens when your mind, heart, and actions align. That's the core of what some call a quantum shift. Not a gradual upgrade, but a leap into a new version of reality. And it starts with a deceptively simple formula: thought plus emotion plus aligned action. At the first layer, you have thoughts, the internal dialogue that either pushes you forward or holds you back. I can do this might seem like a motivational poster phrase, but if you really believe it, your brain starts to scan the world differently. It shifts from threat mode to opportunity mode. That belief becomes a lens, and suddenly, your environment begins to reflect that shift. But thought alone isn't enough. You also need to feel it. That's the second layer, emotion. When you attach real feeling to a thought, joy, gratitude, anticipation, you activate a much deeper level of energy. It's like turning on the amplifier. Think about the difference between saying, I believe in myself, and actually feeling that belief in your body. One is a sentence, the other is a state of being. And your state of being is what sends the signal. The third layer is action. Even the smallest step forward anchors the thought and emotion into the physical world. It's what tells your nervous system, this isn't just a nice idea, we're doing this. Without action, the thought and emotion stay in the realm of potential. But once you move, whether it's making a call, signing up for something, or sketching a plan, you shift from wishing to creating. Here's where it gets powerful. When all three layers line up, you're no longer just hoping for change, you're embodying it. And that's when reality starts to shift, faster than logic expects. That's the quantum shift. Picture someone who's always dreamed of starting a business. For years, they read books, watched TED Talks, maybe even write plans, but deep down, they don't really believe they're capable. Or they believe it, but they're consumed by anxiety or self-doubt, so the energy is off. Or they think and feel ready, but they never take action. In any of those cases, the shift never lands. But the moment they think, I can do this, feel lit up and excited by the idea, and take even one small step, like building a website, registering a name, or making a product, that's when the field starts responding. In 6 months, they might have a full company, not because they forced it, but because they aligned with it. It's the same mechanism behind something people often attribute to miracles. In religious or spiritual traditions, people pray, and sometimes remarkable things happen. But it's not just about saying words or asking a divine power. The prayers that seem to work usually come from a place of deep belief, strong emotion, and often lead to changed behavior. When someone truly believes they're being guided, feels love or surrender in their heart, and starts acting as if their prayer is being answered, they're lining up the same 3 layers. It's not about proving a doctrine. It's about understanding how human energy and consciousness shape experience. Quantum shifts don't require you to be perfect. They require you to be coherent, to move in one direction, mentally, emotionally, physically. That's what makes the signal powerful enough to bend reality. If your life feels stuck, maybe it's not because you're doing something wrong, but because one of the three layers is out of sync. Maybe you're acting, but your heart's not in it. Or you're dreaming, but not moving. Or you're feeling it, but still telling yourself old stories in your head. So here's the real formula. Think it, feel it, act on it. When those three become one, the world moves with you. Breakthroughs feel electric. That rush you get after a workshop, a book that hits deep, or a moment of clarity that shakes your whole perspective. Feels like nothing can stop you. For a while you're on, motivated, focused, alive. But then, life creeps back in. Old habits return. The shift fades. You slowly slide into the version of yourself you thought you'd outgrown. This isn't failure. It's biology. The brain defaults to the familiar, unless you intentionally train it otherwise. That's why staying at a high energetic frequency isn't a one-time insight. It's a practice. If you don't reinforce a new state of being, the nervous system pulls you back into the old one. Think of it like a rubber band. Unless you tie off the stretch with new habits, it snaps back. So how do you make elevated living your new normal? By weaving it into your daily life. In simple, consistent ways. Start with 3 minutes of vision every morning. Not as a chore, but as an anchor. Close your eyes and imagine how you want to feel today. Not just what you want to do. Step into the version of yourself you're becoming. Let your nervous system taste that reality before the world demands your attention. When you start your day this way, you set the frequency before anything else does. Then, tap into gratitude, but not the checkbox kind. Choose 3 things and feel them fully. It could be your health, the sunlight, person, or even a hard lesson you're finally learning. Gratitude shifts your state immediately. Tells your body, we're safe. We're already blessed. From that place, your energy expands. You attract better because you're not leaking from lack. Now add intention, not a to-do list, but a signal to your system. Pick one action that moves you in alignment with who you're becoming. Small is powerful. Send the email. Smile at the stranger. Say no to something draining. Each of these is a vote for your future self. The power isn't in the scale of the action. It's in the alignment behind it. At night, reflect. Not to judge, but to recalibrate. Ask yourself, did I live today as the version of me I want to be? No shame if the answer is no. Just awareness. That's how you get better at catching the drift, before it becomes a detour. But internal work alone can only take you so far. To truly sustain high energy, you need to build an ecosystem around it. Your environment whispers to your nervous system all day long, so make it speak your future. Curate what you consume: music, images, books, conversations. Design your space to reflect clarity, not chaos. If your surroundings reflect your vision, your mind doesn't have to fight your reality to believe it. And most importantly, choose your people. Energy is contagious. When you're around those who live in fear, gossip, or resignation, it drags on your field. But when you co-regulate with people who are lit up, self-aware, and on the same frequency, you rise together. It's not hype, it's resonance. The fastest way to shift your energy is to sync with someone already where you want to be. Transformation isn't a peak moment, it's a new baseline. Your normal doesn't have to be stress, reactivity, or survival. Your normal can be clarity, calm, and forward motion, but only if you nurture it. So don't wait for a lightning bolt. You've already had it. The real work now is to live the shift, again and again, until it stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like you. That's when you know the extraordinary has become your ordinary, and from there, the only way is up. After exploring all these layers, Energy, beliefs, reality, action. You might be wondering, what's the point of it all? Is it to become richer? More successful? More powerful? Maybe not. Because the deeper purpose of awakening isn't about achieving something. It's about returning to who you really are. Not the version the world trained you to become, but the one that existed before all the noise. Before the self-doubt, the fear, the pretending. The goal isn't perfection. It's truth. It's wholeness. It's becoming real again. You don't need to fix yourself. What if all you needed was to witness yourself with compassion, not judgment, like a mother holding a crying child, not because the child is wrong, but because they just need to be held. Your limiting beliefs, your fears, that heavy emotional energy, they're not enemies. They're parts of you that never got heard. They're not here to punish you. They're here to help you wake up. And when you start listening, something shifts. You realize you don't have to destroy your current reality to create a better one. You don't need to push, hustle, or force your way through. You just need to shift your awareness from reacting to creating, from I have to I choose to. Every thought, every small action you take, it's not about proving your worth. It's a quiet reminder of the person you're becoming, not in a rush, not to win, just to be. Because life isn't a race to the top. It's a dance of consciousness. One breath, one moment, one decision at a time. You're not behind. You're not broken. And you don't need to become like anyone else. Reality isn't a prison. It's a mirror. And you don't need to smash the mirror. You just need to adjust what you're bringing to it. So maybe the real question isn't, how do I change my life? Maybe it's, if I were already free, how would I see this moment differently? That's when the game really changes. If this series has sparked something in you, even just one shift in how you see yourself or your world, go ahead and like, subscribe, or drop a comment, not for algorithms, but because your energy adds to the conversation. And maybe someone else out there needs to hear what you got from this. You never know who you're helping, just by sharing your voice. We're building something here, an ecosystem of clarity, truth, and self-remembrance. You in?